Hello, welcome to Dunderall's podcast. I'm your host Justin. Today, for our latest book review, we're reviewing the 1983 book, The Elfstones of Shannara, written by Terry Brooks. This is part of the Shannara Chronicles, which was adapted into a TV show in the last couple years. At first, I thought it was MTV that put it out, but it says here Spike. This book is the sequel to the 1977 book, The Sword of Shannara, which was the first book in the series that was changed into like a prequel because I guess the author was embarrassed by it a little bit because it's notorious for being a Lord of the Rings ripoff. It's pretty much an abridged version of the Lord of the Rings, which I like the first Sword of Shannara book, which you can watch my review of it on my YouTube channel. Right, if you just go to my playlist for my book reviews. So this book came out like 5 years after the Sword of Shannara and takes place 50 years after the events of the Sword of Shannara, after Shea and his friends defeated the Warlock Lord, right? So if people don't know, this takes place in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world, though it's not. I don't know if it's supposed to be our world that got turned into a fantasy world. It's implied that. I haven't read the prequel books, right? Which there is a series called the Pre-Shannara, and the first book is the Genesis Shannara that talks about that. So this book takes place 50 years after the events of the first book, right? And there was a bunch of unanswered questions in the first Sword of the Shannara, like what was the origins of the elves, because you had the four the other different races of man were basically mutants of the original mankind, like the rock trolls in the north and the gnomes, right? And you had the regular men, and the dwarves too, and the regular men who lived in the south. But in the west, you have the elves, right? So it's wait, the elves were around even before the apocalypse, right? Created all the different races of man that exist today. So you actually find out their origin story, that they're basically the elves were the descendants of fairies, of good fairies, that over the years that almost went extinct during a war between the good fairies and the bad fairies, and they had to adapt, and they became more man-like. They went from having shorter lifespans so they could repopulate faster, right? So the book takes place in 50 years after Eventine Isildur, the king of the elves, is still around. He's 80 years old, right? And he has two sons, Andor Isildur, the second son, and the crown prince Arion, who is kind of a jerk. Andor is more of the main character to him. One of the main characters, right? So what's going on is, in the Elven Kingdom, they have this tree called the Elfcries, there's the tree back there, right? And it's this magical tree, that every year picks young men to take care of it, called the Chosen, right? And the tree has been around for thousands of years, right? And in the Elven legends, it talks about how the tree was formed to create this barrier that banished all the demons from the world that used to be the evil fairies, right? That became demonic, that got banished from the world, right? And it creates this barrier. like alternate dimension that traps him, right? So what happens is the Elcries tells the Chosen that, hey, she's going to be dying soon, and they need to find somebody needs to carry her seed to the blood fire to germinate it so she can be reborn, or otherwise the demons are going to come out of the forbidding, which is what it's called, and they're going to wipe out the elves and all the races of men after they wipe out the elves, because they're really pissed off at the elves, right? So what ends up happening is Alanon comes back, our immortal druid character. Though he's not immortal per se, he has like a magical technique to prolong his life by sleeping, and he comes back every time he feels like the lands are in danger, right? So what happens? He comes back, finds out finds out that 3 demons had come out of the Forbidden and killing the Chosen, right? And the 3 demons are the evil sorcerer Dagda Moore, which is basically the Grinch in like a red robe with a wizard's like staff. That's basically how he's described. He looks like the Grinch, evil sorcerer version of the Grinch, which is completely different from the TV show. And he has like two demons under him. One is a changeling that can transform into different things, and it becomes the demon's army spy. And you have the Reaper, which is basically think if you've ever seen like the movie, the Peter Jackson film, The Frighteners, that's basically what it is. This big cloaked like ghostly monster that can kill everybody. So what happens is that the Chosen get killed by the Reaper and the Changeling, right? And Alanon comes too late, but talks to the tree, finds out that there is one Chosen left, who is the granddaughter of Isildur, called Amberlay, who quit her job as a Chosen because of personal reasons, right? Who went and become a teacher, right? So Alanon has to go find her and convince her to go on this quest to take the seed from the Elcries and go to the Bloodfire, which is in this like accursed land south of the westland of the Arbalon, the kingdom of the elves, right? And because there's a demonic army marching on the westland, the kingdom of the elves, he has to stay behind, and he can't journey with her. So he goes and finds Will Almsford, which is the grandson of Shea Almsford, the main character of the Sword of Shannara, who's only a 5th elven, and because he's only a 5th elven, he can barely use the Elf Stones, right? Which is 3 magic blue stones that can be used as a weapon against demons, right? And that's why Alanon went to him to ask him to go on this quest to journey with Amberlay to the Bloodfire, or else all the lands of the man are going to be fucked, pretty screwed, right? And Flick, the only other characters from the first book besides Eventine and Alalon is Flick, who like thinks as Will as a son and doesn't want him to go, because apparently like Will's parents were killed, and Flick and Shea like became his guardians, right? And they're both widowers apparently, right? Which Shea is only mentioned in the book. He doesn't have any scenes. So on the journey, Will's journey, he encounters gypsies called rovers, and unlike the gypsies in the Wheel of Time, these gypsies are not good gypsies, the rovers. They steal his horse, and then later on, they tried to steal the Elfstones, right? But, like, one of the rovers, which are the gypsies, joins his band called Elchiaria, or however you pronounce her name. She's this beautiful, like, gypsy girl with black hair, black curly hair. And you have, like, another person that joins their group is Hebel, who's this old man, old grouchy man, and his dog Drifter, which is a big black dog. And there was also, like, the Elven Hunter, which is what they call, like, the scouts in, like, Arbelon, called Crispin and his band of warriors, who journey with Will only to be cannon fodder. So I enjoyed the book. You have, like, two storylines. You have the one storyline where Will and Emberlay and their group go to travel to find the Bloodfire, where they don't really know where it is, where they encounter demons, thieves, evil witches, and you have the other story where Al-Anon and their Isildur and Eventine have to fight off the demon army with the help of some dwarves, one group of bordermen from the south of Calhorn, right? And rock trolls. Even though, like, rock trolls, which are supposed to be the mortal enemies of the elves, especially since they were at war in the last book, they came to help, right? Because they feel like they owe the elves because, like, they got rid of the Warlock Lord, which was, like, oppressing the rock trolls. So I really enjoyed this book. A lot of the problems of the first book they fix in this one, like there's battle scene. There were battle scenes in the first book that strategically didn't make I wouldn't say didn't make a lot of sense, but was, like, generic. Here they actually had some clever strategic battles, right, which was pretty cool. But for people who were like, oh, this book they stopped ripping off the Lord of the Rings, right? Wrong, because they brought over the giant eagles from the Lord of the Rings here, where, like, these group of elves ride these giant birds called rocks, right? And there's even a scene where let's see if I can find it, where Al-Anon rides one of the giant birds and has a sky battle with it was around here. I'm trying to find it. Man, it was, like, around here. See if I can find it. Here it is. Here's Al-Anon on a rock fighting the Dagamora on a giant bat. Which there's lots of different creatures in the book, like goblins. There's a dragon that shows up. With lizard demons and shit. A lot more, like, fantasy monsters in this book than in the first one, which was cool. Though no giant, like, killer cyborg monsters like in that they found in, like, the ruins in the first book, which that was pretty cool. I kind of would have been nice if they had it. So I enjoyed this book. If I had one problem, I liked the characters more in the first book than this book, but it's still a good read. A lot of people think this book is better, and in a lot of ways, there's a lot of good improvements from the first book here. But, like, I gotta say, I did like the characters better in the first book. But this is still a good read. I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10. So for my next book review, I was going to review Inside Straight, this George R.R. Martin book, which he just edited it. He didn't write it. This is a wildcards novel. I don't know. Like, I kind of want to read this book instead. This is a thriller because I'm kind of getting burnt out on like fantasy books. So I don't know. Let me know. Do you want this conspiracy thriller written by the co-creator? A review of this book, which is written by the co-creator of Twin Peaks, or do you want a review of this book? Let me know in the comments.